Okay, it's October 27th. We're in Kings Bay. Frances Tuccillo has kindly come for an interview for Our Streets, Our Stories. She was born on January 20th, 1938. My name is Brian Hasbrouck. I work for the Brooklyn Public Library. And yeah, so let's hear your Brooklyn experience.
Okay. I came from immigrant parents. My mother was born in Ischia in Italy, and my father was born in Vincennes, which is another small island off the coast of Naples. It's in the water. Naples is the nearest town or whatever. Anyway, and I came from family. We were 6 children, and my father worked as a tailor. My mother was a seamstress, and she worked in a factory. My father worked in a factory, and then he had a second job on 14th Street in Manhattan in a tailor shop, and he would be tailoring a lot of very noted stars and celebrities, and that's what he did. And he would come home very late at night, about 9 o'clock at night. So it was a long day for him. My mother, to entertain us was not a problem because my mother was very good, and when we were little, she would bring us to the movies. And of course, we loved the movies, and of course, there was 2 movies at the time, and of course, the cartoons and everything else. So we would be in there for about 4 hours. My mother would bring lunch, and she would also have for the kids and everything else. And we were good for those 4 hours. We were very quiet. So that's what we did for entertainment, or what we would go to Coffee Park, which is in the redhead section of Brooklyn. We lived on Union Street, between Hick and Henry Street, if you know where that is. And it was primarily Italian. All my family, my relatives lived nearby. Some people lived in Pleasant Street, or Carroll Street, and just around the neighborhood, Sackett, and, they all lived around the neighborhood, so we went to each other's house, and I had plenty of aunts and uncles all around, So it was a big family, and they worked as we would meet, we would go over to Grandma's house, or Aunt Antoinette's, or Aunt Helen's, or somebody, So we had very close contact with the family, And our education, my father was a Republican, and my mother was a Democrat. And my father would tell my mother what to vote, and she says, yeah, and she would vote Democrat, of course.
Nice.
But it was a nice life, there was. My parents argued and everything else, and we had a lot of other problems, but I don't want to go into that. But itself, I went to public school 142, which was a good school. We had first started out with Catholic school because we were Catholic and devoted Catholic. But then it didn't work out. The Catholic school didn't work out, and we went to public school, and we were much happier going to public school, And we've ranged in age. My sister is 12 years, the youngest was 12 years younger than me, and she's 65 at the time now. And the oldest we're 14 months apart, and I live with him now, my brother Joey, And we all went to high school. I didn't finish high school, but then I finished later on. I finished high school, and I went to college in my later years at the age of 50. But I moved with my father, because Mama passed away, and I moved my father to Italy, and I lived with him and took care of him because he was ill at the time. So, we have a variation of lives that we lived, and, but life in our community was, the kids. My brother Jimmy started working, I think, at 7 or 8 years old. And it was just a little job that he had, because they had fruit stands at the time. down Union Street, and he would work and help them with the fruit stand. The way the boys nowadays, or when I was younger too, did the paper route, he would help with the fruits and vegetables. And he did that till he was about, I say 13 or 14 years old. So he would get up early, do that, and then go to school.
Wow.
So that was,
It's a long day.
it's a long day, but he was very bright. So, yeah. And not my brother Joe, we didn't want to do all that. He was a studious person of the family, and he always had his head in the books with us. And
What did he end up doing?
What?
What did he end up doing?
Not very much, to tell you the
No,
truth.
no.
Getting a lot of degrees, but that's about it. That's about it. But he's a very bright person, and but very shy. So it didn't help him with his. He also passed the teacher's exam. He could have become a teacher, but he had problems, personality problems, that he was very communicative. So, but he was very bright, and he turned out to be a poet, and he has a lot of poetry. And
So you grew up primarily in Red Hook.
I grew up till I was 20, and then I went to Flatbush.
Oh,
Because
okay.
everybody wanted to go to Flatbush. My mother's sisters started to go to Flatbush, and then everybody kind of came along. My mother came along. Oh, we wanted to go to Flatbush because Flatbush was the place to go. Was the upscale neighborhood. Of course, my father wanted to buy a house on First Place, which we would have been millionaires now. Okay, he wanted to buy a brownstone,
Wow.
but that didn't work out because my mother wanted to go with her sisters, because that was the thing. The family, it moved together as a group, and it relied on each other for certain. Although there were frictions and fights, and not fights. That was the Italian way, but they were still together and wanted to be together, wanted to be in the same neighborhood.
Are your siblings and you? You said you live with your brother.
Yeah.
Are you all still kind of close proximity wise?
Well, my sister is in Staten Island now.
Okay.
My son is in Staten Island, and my brother lives with me, and I have another brother at the nursing homes in Queens. And that's about it. And my other two brothers died. One was in Staten Island, and he passed away. My other brother was on drugs.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and he lived with me for a while. He lived with me for a long time. And then he got sick, and I took care of him. In the nursing home. I mean, I would go to the nursing home every day to take care of him. And give him his food because the food in the nursing home was horrible. So, as it is now too. Now I go to another nursing home in Queens with my brother Anthony, who's in a nursing home. He has emphysema, chronic bronchitis. He's not a drug addict or anything, but he has a smoking problem now. And he had a psychological problem too. Went out of the service, a lot of mess. So, but living in Brooklyn was good. I mean, we were very naive. I would have friends in the neighborhood, and I would walk them home, and they would walk me home, and we stood walking each other home for till 30.
Wow.
Do
you think that it sounds your family is very close?
Yeah, we were very close.
Do you think that still exists? Do you think it doesn't exist?
The closest, I have two grandchildren, and I see they're on the computer, they're on their cell phones, even when they're eating. You know what I mean? And I don't feel like with my grandson, I don't think there's any communication. There's not that communication, and he's getting to. I don't know. I don't want to butt in, but he comes. He's like basketball, but they're never home.
Oh.
Oh.
And so you had mentioned, to change tracks for a second, you had mentioned that your parents were immigrants.
Yeah, they were immigrants.
And how do you think that affected your family?
Was
that a normal thing? Was that abnormal?
Well, where I lived, it was normal because most of the people were Italian, and they either came to Naples or Sicily.
Well,
You know, they exchanged each other's recipe, and we had down that neighborhood is one of the best cuisines. If you go down there, you
Yeah.
know, wherever you eat, you're going to eat well, you know, because the neighborhood itself it was made of you know, between Sicilians and Napolitana, and the cooking was outrageous, out of this world,
yeah.
as far as food is concerned. And one of the main things in the Italians is the food.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. We had Sunday dinner, which would last from 12 o'clock to at least 4 o'clock, you know. And
It's a long dinner.
Yeah, it's a long dinner. Yeah. And it was considered, it was like lunchtime, but it was dinner for us.
Yeah, we did the
You
same.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so that tradition has passed on. It doesn't happen anymore. It does happen.
I'll tell you, you know, like the kids, they come to eat. You save my food. I see them saying, "Save my food. I'll eat later." You know, whenever I come home, you know, and I think with my son, I think the holidays are very important. They're still very important,
Yeah.
and we still have the most fantastic holidays. You know, where everything's spread out,
Yeah.
especially Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Where we have all the fish dinner. you
Yeah,
know.
the 12, is it 12
Yeah.
fishes?
Oh yeah.
I always forget
and
that.
I think my son at one time went to get this fish salad in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
That's how, because he couldn't get it here, so it was. So he went to Pennsylvania to get the fish salad. So that's how important it is. You have every type of fish. The lobsters are, you know, that's Christmas Eve is very important. Then Christmas Day too, but Christmas even
Yeah.
more. You know.
Yeah.
And Easter, you know, the holidays are very important.
Yeah.
The holidays, for my family, even when I was young, would be, especially Easter, would be baking. And my father had, and my uncles had recipes for a traditional panettone, we call it panettone. It's more like the Jewish bread, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
Like,
It's a little different.
I think I know what you're saying. The big.
yeah,
It's got, like-
the egg bread, yeah.
Yeah, I think I see it. I just don't know what it's called.
Yeah. Anyway, but so it was a way of doing the recipe. I still do it the traditional way. It takes a long time
Okay.
to make the bread, and that's still. And then we made struzela, which is the honey balls.
Hmm.
Did you ever?
No, but they sound
That
honey anything. So.
Yeah. Well, they're fried.
Oh. Even
You know,
better.
and what you do is roll it, and then you cut them up in very little pieces like this, and you fry them.
Mm.
And then you put honey on them. When you're finished, you got a bowl, and you put honey
Making me
and
hungry.
sprinkles at
You're
sprinkles
making me really
on the
hungry.
top. Sprinkles on you, sprinkle it on.
Your whole family now for the holidays. Your whole family would get to.
Oh
so
yeah,
your
well,
dad
we
take
would
off,
exchange.
or-
Well, even my cousins and I would exchange their casadillo, which is the bread.
Oh.
You know, and we would exchange to see who did it better. So there was a competition going on between us and who could cook better, you know.
Wow. That's a
My
good
cousin was
competition.
very good. My cousin Candy was excellent. She passed away recently.
That's so.
But she was a good cook. And they were all good. Uncle John was wonderful. And in fact, I had Uncle John's recipe. I still do for his bread.
So your mom, you'd mentioned that she was a seamstress.
Yeah. But my
Did
mother.
she work? How much did she work?
Well, she worked a lot. I mean, when she was able to work, I must have been about 12, 13 when she started working on a full-time basis.
Wow.
You know, yeah. Me and my sister was little, but where she would have somebody taking care of my sister because nobody was neglected, you know.
No.
Everybody was taken care of, and we come home from school, and we each have our things that we had to do. You know.
So you guys,
So-
they divided some
But
of the
divided,
house.
not division was with me more than anything else. The girls, if there were girls in the family, the boys did little or nothing. I don't know how it is in the Jewish family, but the boys did little or nothing, and they still do. You know, Although I brought up my son differently, you know. He
Nice.
knows how to cook, he knows how to clean, he knows how to do everything.
Gotta do one of the two.
Yeah.
If you cook and you don't clean, vice versa.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. So so growing up, obviously, family was very, very important, and your parents. I mean, what kind of efforts did they go through to make sure that everyone was together? I mean, was it just natural because everyone was so close?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, yeah. Yeah, but the most thing that my mother used to say, every holiday, make it worse than this one, because, you know, money is always a problem, although we didn't pay much for rent now then, and, you know, but make it worse, but let us be all together. I mean, that was the main thing.
I like that.
Let us be all together, and even if things are worse, and we're without things, you know. But my parents at the time, I mean, there wasn't clothes. We used to get outfits for Easter and Christmas. That's what was our days to get time to get outfits, and we would get a completely new outfit from shoes, stuff. But we didn't have that many clothes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and my father would take his shirts, and he had to have his shirts either starched and sent it to the laundries, and they had to be. And I always remember my father with his shirts and the white shirts and the tie. You know, even though he was a tailor, that's the way you went. You know, but
That's great.
yeah,
Very proud of his
yeah,
appearance. That's good.
they're very proud of himself.
How did the Great Depression affect your family?
Well, my mother told me about the Depression, and well, I was born in 1938,
Yeah.
so they were there, and she would tell me that there were times that that her sisters used to come over, and there was a pot boiling, and it would keep boiling, you know, but there was nothing to put in it really, you know, and he would wait for my dad, and they had a little bit of rough time for a time getting work too, you know, so the pressure wasn't good, but they managed to get through it. Of course, the rents weren't the way they are now. I mean, I remember on Union Street, I think my mother paid $24 a month. You know, and I think before that was $10, $15 a month.
So did she impart a lot of the wisdom and lessons she learned from the Great Depression then into you and your sisters? Or
Well,
was
we knew that first of all, my father did not tell us or showed us that debt. You didn't make any debt. If you wanted something, you bought it cash. You didn't make any debt.
Well.
No, nobody had debts, you know. And my father was the one to go to, who was a saver. So if my aunts or uncles were in a fix, they would go to my father.
Oh.
Okay. He was the one to go to. He was the one
Every
that
family has
would
one, yeah.
lend money to. So he would lend money, and they would pay back. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's very nice.
So, you know, so the family was pretty good together. I mean, close as far as that, you could count on each other. You know what I mean?
And so
If somebody got in trouble, you could count that somebody else would
Really?
bail you out. You know, I mean, economically.
Yeah. Yeah, oh no, I didn't
You
think
know what I
literally,
mean?
yeah.
Economically. So the kids were all fairly good, you know. My brother Hugo started to go to trouble when we moved to Flatbush here, where there was drugs and everything else. But at that time, in that neighborhood, of course, then afterwards it did become drug infested too. But there was no drugs.
What decades did your family move to Flatbush?
We moved in the beginning of the 60s, I think.
60s.
You know.
Wow.
But my brother was in elementary school, I think.
Wow. And so,
You know, they got them, you know, and he started with, I guess, marijuana and other things, you know. And ruined his life, of course.
yeah.
And he died of AIDS. Well, he didn't really die of AIDS because he was medicated for that, but he died of complications.
Yeah,
He was young.
Yeah.
He was young. He was, I think, 58 or something.
When was that? What decade was that?
Well, he died about 8, 9 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how have you? So you moved from Red Hook to Flatbush to where did you go next? Have you been in Flatbush ever since?
went to Flatbush, and then from Flatbush, my father, when my mother died, my mother had a heart attack and she died very rapidly. My father had gotten hurt. He used to drink, and he fell and he got hurt and he had scars on his brakes, which he had seizures, you know.
Oh, no.
So when you know, when my mother died, we were taking care of him, and we didn't expect my mother to go. So when my mother died, whether she died of heart attack or she had complications, maybe to pneumonia or something, we don't know. But she died suddenly, and then my father decided to sell the house, and we had a house on in Flatbush, East 32nd Street, indeed.
Okay.
And we had a house there, and then we sold that house, and he went to Italy, and I followed him. I followed him to take care of him. I was divorced. I had a young child at the time, and I took care of my father till he died. You know. So
your son got to learn Italian then?
my son was brought up in Italy.
Yeah.
My son was I guess 4 or 5 when he went there.
Wow.
Yeah, and we stood there till my son was. I stood there after my father died too.
What were the differences
16.
that you noticed when you moved from Brooklyn, coming up completely through Brooklyn, and then you're in this completely different country? What kind of differences were there that
There
really
was a
stood
lot
out?
of differences. There was a lot of differences. A lot of things that were negative and positive. Possessive family there, you know. That we used to being a little freer, and everything there was confined, you know. The marketplaces there was marketplaces where you could go and get your food, which was nice in a way. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and the food was fresh, and there was a lot of restaurants, and it was beautiful. Italy was absolutely gorgeous, and I traveled a little bit.
Oh, awesome.
You know, to different parts of Italy. Of course, I could have done more traveling, but I didn't. You know, and it was hard for me because I didn't know the language that well. I mean, I spoke the dialect, and my son was going to school, and he needed help, you know. So my aunt helped out with that, and they were very possessive. And there was a battle going on between my aunt and me because they wanted my son all the time, you know. And I would have to. It was hard. It was hard. It was tough.
And so how you stayed there for a bit and then you moved back to Brooklyn?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
where did you land, so to speak?
Not far from Flatbush, you know. My brother had a place on, I'm just trying to say, on Avenue N.
Okay.
And near Flatbush,
Okay.
Avenue N in Flatbush, and moved. I stood there, you know, and then you know, I got a job, and I got one job, I got another job, and then I started going to college.
Great.
I wasn't even finished high school, so I got my high school diploma and went to Kingsborough, graduated Kingsborough,
Great.
and went to Staten Island College, and I got a Regents degree, you know, and took some tests at Brooklyn College, you know, for 30 credits. I finished school. I finished my education, and I worked for the Board of Education.
Oh, cool.
As a para. But I could have taught because I had my degree to teach.
Was education important in your family?
It was always very important in
Yeah.
my family. My father was always for education. And my father, we could discuss, like, politics was his major thing. He enjoyed politics, you know. Of course, he was a Republican, and, you know, we got slanted towards the Republican. Now I'm not. I became a Democrat, not a Republican. But my mother never let that influence her. She voted the way she wants. She said, when I'm in that booth, I do what I want to do, not what he wants to do. So he says, I'm free, and she was.
That's interesting, especially because the effect of the Great Depression had such a powerful.
I don't know. I guess the rich were Republicans. I don't know. My father loved the Republicans. No, he would never go for another party but the Republicans.
No talk of FDR in the House.
What?
Of FDR. FDR wasn't. You didn't bring FDR up.
No. But my uncle Hugo would never. My father sent for my uncle, who was. The conditions were very poor in Italy. They came from small islands.
Yeah.
So my uncle came over here, and my father set up an apartment. Whatever, the apartments there didn't even have bathtubs or anything.
Wow.
There were apartments in South Brooklyn that didn't have it. The truth of the matter, when I went to Italy and I asked for a bathroom, we thought it was, the word in Italian was Backhaus. Backhaus meant the back of the house. It wasn't an Italian word, and we didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But back of the house, because that's where the bathroom was, in the back of the house.
Oh.
Okay? So in my uncle's apartment, as we went up the stairs, there was no bath there. There was just they had a kitchen, a very, very small kitchen, and in the hall there was a toilet. No bathtub, no nothing. And they lived there for a long time. My cousins finished college. They did everything. I mean, they're in very good shape now.
Right.
They worked for the mayor. And
Oh, cool.
They did a lot.
So you have like a very unique, and this is part of the project. Your experience is very rare in Brooklyn because you have lived here for an extensive period of time, and even more interesting because you went to a different continent and then came back.
Yeah.
And so, what have you seen? What's the best thing you've seen that's happened in Brooklyn? What's the worst thing? What do you miss the most?
I'll tell you, we were a little prejudiced. There was no question about it, And my mother wasn't. But we were a little prejudiced. We were afraid. I was very afraid of the black people, because you didn't know them. And you know what I'm trying to say? You were brought up in that. The minute my mother died, but before my mother died, they wanted to move because it started getting black. I don't know if I should say this, but it's the truth, and we didn't know the black people. Of course, now I've worked with black people, but when I first came back here, it was very scary. The whole thing was scary. Yeah. I mean, I was coming back here, and I was adapted to Italy, and even my dreams were in Italian, you know what I mean? I dreamt in Italian. So, and going into a subway station was like going in for the first time. It was so different, I was petrified.
What decade did you move back?
I moved back about, I would say, about 24 years ago.
Oh, so that was, say, like the beginning of the 80s?
Yeah.
Wow. And so there was, how was it? How was Brooklyn then? Especially compared to today. How would you describe it?
Well, I'll tell you, I remember going on the subway, and even the blacks were they make problems for you, you know what I mean? Touching me, they were very resentful towards the whites. Not only, I was afraid of them, they were resentful. I don't think it goes on now. I think the blacks are completely different. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But I could understand why. Because where they came from, where they are now, thank God, I mean, we have a black president, thank God. Although everybody disagrees with him. But you know what I'm trying to say? It's a different, there's more marriages with black people. They don't look, and thank God, they don't look at the same way that they did before.
So would it be wrong to characterize it as there's a lot more racial harmony now.
Yes.
Things aren't so segregated between
Right,
ethnicities.
right. And I'm not only talking about the whites, the blacks were against the whites too.
Hmm.
It was in both things. I mean, I remember going on buses and they would make life horrible for you.
Hmm.
Touching me, this, that. Very angry all the time, you know. I'm talking about women too, you know.
Yeah. And so what do you think, one of the things, say that when you were walking to the library today, what was one of the things maybe you thought to yourself, like, oh, I'm glad that got taken care of, or like maybe even just something simple, like, oh, there's not as much litter, or if you took the bus, say, it might have been easier. What are you happy
I
about?
think it's easier now than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
For me, you know. Because I'm used to, people, I'm used to the neighborhood and everything. Of course, I'm still a little careful. I mean, I'm careful around here because we still have shootings, we still have things going on, and you have to be careful. I don't go out late at night,
Yeah.
But that's a normal thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's very normal, I think.
Yeah.
And so when you compared your experiences or the lessons you've learned in life, do you think anything specific to Brooklyn, was part of your attitude?
Part of my attitude was my family. I think it made it was very important to me.
Yeah.
That I could go to my aunts and I could go to my uncles and I could go to my cousins. And I had this communication, and if there was a problem, I had somebody to talk to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was the closeness, the caring, It was a wonderful thing to have a big family and to.
How long did you work for the Department of Education?
I did my 20 years and I retired. I did my time.
Yeah.
I did my time and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my pensions.
Nice.
And
what prevented you from? You had said you finished your degree at CSI. What was it? Just that you weren't interested in teaching, or?
No, I was very interested in teaching, but I found out that I was teaching anyway.
Oh, great.
I was teaching anyway. I would take over the class and I would be teaching anyway. But I wouldn't have the principal on my back. And there was a lot of paperwork, and there was a lot of things to do, and even now, the principals are horrible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? And I didn't want that pressure, so I did extra work, and and I set into my TDA, so I have another little pension. I have my teacher's pension, and then I have, another pension that I still have the same amount of money in it, my TDA, tax deferred annuity, which is a blessing. So I put money into that. So
that's great.
So I have my teacher's pension, I have the Social Security, and I have that. So once a year, I get $19,000, but they take taxes out and everything else.
Always taxes.
Yeah,
they always get
there's always taxes.
They always get there.
And everybody says, "Would you want to work again?" But I don't need to pay any more taxes than I already do. So
over the 20 years you spent with the Department of Education, what kind of changes did you see? I mean, a lot has happened. Really?
Enough for the.
The better or worse? It doesn't.
I think it's worse.
I
think they were dedicated people. They're still dedicated people in the Board of Ed. There are some people that shouldn't be there at all, And then I worked in special ed, which is a completely different story. And in the special ed department, I think they could do, or whatever they could do. There's some of these kids that are lucky they put a spoon to their mouth and feed themselves. Some of them have to be diapered, and it's very bad, and autistic kids. We haven't gone ahead with the autism. Autism is a terrible problem, and there's no communication there. And you try to talk to these kids, and then they have an agenda. They have things that you're supposed to accomplish for the teacher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't. You lie. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not practical. Some of these kids can't do anything. You have You know, some of the autistic kids, but they're not autistic, I forgot what they call them, they could do a lot, you know? There's some kids that could do it, most of them are very handicapped, and you can't, you make-believe stories. It's all make-believes, you know what I mean?
And so but you had said you went to public school,
Yes.
and then you then taught.
Yeah.
And
I
what
taught
kind of,
what I could teach, you know what I mean? And how I could put things in a simple way for the kids that could do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what were the? I mean, what's really interesting is the, you know, like so you graduated from so you went to public school, you went through it, eventually you graduated college, and all these great things.
Right.
Do you think that would be possible today for you? Would you
would it be possible?
Have the schools become bad that you can't do it? Are the schools still just as good, or are they better?
I think there are I think there are wonderful teachers out there, as far as junior high school is concerned. They're good teachers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think some of them, like the special ed, is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because you categorize people, and if you have people who have dyslexia, which is a completely different, because I found out that I was dyslexic too. My grandson is dyslexic, so, but it isn't that you're not right. That you're not, you know, you see things and you learn in a different manner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? And that's what we didn't have then, which we have now. I mean, we were able to be tested, and, you know. But I think there are great teachers. I think there are teachers that really dedicate their lives to teaching. And there are teachers that are not supposed to be teaching. You have.
It's a relief to hear that there are great teachers.
They
still
are
in the
great
system.
teachers that really want to do.
Everyone remembers that one teacher that changed.
What?
Everyone remembers that one teacher.
Oh yeah.
Changes,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you
In
did
fact,
that.
I remember Mr. Fine, who was wonderful, and then I was lucky enough to have a class, and his daughter was my teacher.
Oh, wow.
In college, you know,
Go figure.
which very rarely happens.
Yeah.
Is it? So, you know, and I found out, you know, the father passed away and everything else, and I was so glad to meet the daughter.
Yeah.
That was
Small world. And so what do you think makes Brooklyn special? If it is special, what do you think makes it different?
I'll tell you the things that made Brooklyn special. I mean, years ago it was the Brooklyn Dodgers. Everybody loved the Dodgers.
Yeah.
You know, everybody loves baseball. It was like, in a way, it was a small town. You know, we had more of the small town effect than the big city effect. You know, and I think that was positive.
Yeah.
You know, you had neighbors, you had the local grocery store. You lived in a neighborhood where you knew your neighbor. You know what I'm trying to say? Now it's the big department stores. It's the big stores. It's not that neighbor that you know that you could trust.
Yeah.
You know, and you could go to the, you know, like I need a bottle of milk, and I maybe don't have the money now, and they would give it to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what we had before that we don't have now.
How do you think that happened? How did we get to that?
Well, I think it's advancement. You know, like we have tremendous stores. We could get a lot of things. You know, material things, but the intercommunication that we had before between, we don't have it. We don't know that intimate relationship that we have with the grocery man, the tailor, with the dentist. We all knew each other. We knew our families. They knew us for years, you know. We knew Dr. Block, and Dr. Block would come over, and he was absent-minded, and we knew that he was absent-minded. He was an Italian Jew, and he was a riot. I remember that my aunt, he had to live with my sister, and he forgot his valise. He forgot his valise.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He was a riot. He had to go and get his valise. No, but I mean, but we knew everybody, and everybody knew us. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No, totally.
So that was it was a little small neighborhood. I don't know how it was in Manhattan, but that's how it was here.
Yeah.
So now we have the big stores. We have, you know,
Cell
other
phones.
places that we moved out of and into that have, you know, you need a car to go every place.
Yeah.
You don't have that local neighborhood.
Did you take the train a lot as a when you and your siblings were younger, or was everything just walking or bus maybe?
Most of the stuff was walking. We walked.
Oh, wow.
We walked every. But I mean, we'd go to my all my aunts worked in gloves. They made the gloves.
Oh, okay.
And gloves is not the same as a normal machine. It's a special machine that you use to make gloves. So they would work at home. They would pick up their work in Manhattan, and some of them did a certain part, like the thumb. Some of them did the whole piece. So you would get paid according to what you're doing. You know, they would pick up, and sometimes I would go with them to pick up the gloves and bring them. You know, but most of the time it was Brooklyn. We were in Brooklyn, and you know, we'd go to the neighborhood, you know, stores and the shoe store and everything. We knew Sydney. I mean, you know, it was a different life. It was different. It was better in a way, you know. Now we have computers. We don't even look at
People.
Well, we look at people through the computers. It's wonderful. Like we have friends. My son has friends in Europe, and he could see the kids growing up, and you could just tune in. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's fun. It's nice. So there's good and bad, but we lost a lot, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
We have much more, but we lost a lot.
Okay, that's an interesting. I like that idea. And so, what kind of message or messages would you like for future generations that listen to this? What kind of things, would you like to send them?
The importance of the family, you know, the importance of being a neighbor, a good neighbor, of knowing your neighbors. You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, people don't even say hello to each other. They live in the same apartment house, and people don't even know each other, and people will be dropping dead next door, and you don't know what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it would be nice for people to get closer to each other and have understanding for one another. You know, what they're going through. Be civil, I don't know. I think every religion is the same, you know. Love your neighbors and love yourself. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
And I was going to say, I mean, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about? Or I tried to touch all the topics that I could think about. Was the pizza better in Italy? Maybe that's it.
Oh, I think you can get good pizza. The water is different, you know.
Yeah.
They say the coffee is never the same.
Right, yeah.
Pizza
No matter where you
never
are,
the
yeah.
same because the water is important. So, whatever. We get good food here in America.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, at least
We get good
this part.
food. Yeah.
Okay, great.